It's an honor to be here. How many veterans or military-connected people? Thank you for your service. So what I want to talk to you about today is, Brian asked me, don't just give the blah blah speech about Mount Carmel, give a little bit about your experience and maybe some things that you've learned along the way. So I'm going to try to do that. And Gina challenged me not to stand behind the podium, so I won't do that either. So thank you for that. So Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center, I've had the honor to be doing this for 6 years to serve military veterans and their families. And it was a great road for me personally to get there. So give me the next one, Brian. So what I want to share with you is how I came to this position, some lessons that I learned along the way, and things that I think are important moving forward for anybody who's in a leadership role or doing things in the community. I'm a native, like the bio said, of Lexington, Massachusetts. Anyone who's a historian knows this is Captain Parker. Captain Parker was on the Lexington Green with a bunch of drunken Minutemen who got their butts kicked by the British, but he had the gall and audacity to stand up and start our revolution, which brought us to where we are today. So he's a role model for me. I had an opportunity to go to D.C. last week as part of the Army convention, and they announced as part of the convention that the Army 10-miler was going to be virtual. And I said, great, I can do it on my computer. Excellent. No, they said, no, you have to go out and actually do the Army 10-miler. So I did, and I learned that I am the slowest guy, not in the country, but at least in Washington, D.C., but it was fun doing it. And I have my quotes of a Democrat and a Republican, you elected officials, Kennedy, a native of Massachusetts, and Reagan, who did great things for us in the military, which I think is important. Give me the next slide. At the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center, I think what's important for you to know is we are a place in this community, in this state, that is driven to make sure that our military veterans and their families get a chance as they transition. If you didn't know it, there's 400,000 veterans in Colorado. There's 100,000 in the El Paso region. What I'm trying to do, Pueblo and South, is do more to make sure that rural veterans get the support that they need, so they don't have to travel as far and that we owe them services. I'm driven to do that. I met with the VA yesterday to make sure that we're doing a better connection, and I'm going to keep doing it. I'm honored to be here. I came here in 2009 to serve at Fort Carson and stayed to do this work. I think in this state, it's important that we are veteran-friendly, and you know that in your communities, that we're doing everything we can to support those who served, and I'm just proud to be part of it. Give me the next slide. So this slide depicts the grand opening of the Mount Carmel Veterans Service Center. For those of you who know Jay Cimino, Jay and I first came together, as a matter of fact, when I came down here for the first time as an active duty service member and had a very interesting experience with some angry people who thought we were going to expand Pinyon Canyon. And I went, it's a true story, it's a story in itself. And I went back to Colorado Springs and asked who knew about Trinidad, and they told me there was a car dealer down the street who knew about Trinidad. So I met with Jay on 23 June 2009, and it was life-altering. Mr. Cimino looked at me, he saw my name tag, McLaughlin, and he said, are you sure there's no Italian blood in your lineage? And when I told him, yes, I'm half Italian, he let me in his office. So that began a journey to do better in the community with the military, with the elected officials, with business people. Action 22 was a huge help to me personally starting in 2009, and I'm proud that Brian and I have a relationship where I can continue to give back to the community. What's important about the words up here, Mr. Cimino believes this, and I believe it too, people, passion, process, product, and profit. People say, Colonel, you're in a nonprofit. What does profit mean? And I always say, profit isn't always money. But I will tell you this, in whatever your endeavor is, you've got to have the right people. You've got to have the right people in the right team. They've got to have passion. You got to have the right processes, and in order to have that, you have to have a good product, and for us, Mount Carmel is the product, and we're committed to make sure that we're using these, and I recommend this to anybody. What I always found in the nonprofit world is many people have passion, but they don't have the process or the product. Same in the business world. Passion isn't going to get it alone. I learned that. So I submit this to you as a way to always frame what you're doing. Okay, next slide. So this is a picture of me and my dad. My dad's 85 years old, Korean War era veteran. I was up visiting him last week, doing well. And my purpose of showing you this is kind of my thesis as I talk about the important things. For me, whether it was active duty military or what I'm doing at Mount Carmel, it's values-based leadership, effective communication to earn trust and confidence. And for me as a combat veteran, whether on the battlefield or in the boardroom or in the nonprofit area, if you don't have people's trust, you're going to be slow, you're going to be expensive, and you're not going to get the results you need. So I submit to you that everything that we do in our business is about earning trust. And that's what I believe. With values-based leadership and effective communication, trust can be had. I had a saying throughout my career that perception is reality. You either change perception through effective communication or change reality through action or both. When people don't always look at the things the same way. So if you don't take into account what other people's perceptions are and you don't have effective communication, you'll never earn trust and confidence. I think it's hugely important. The values that I have listed here are the Army values. All of you have values. Everybody believes in something. What I submit to you, every day when you wake up, remember what you value. Remember what's important to you. Because when you bring that to the workplace or your family or sporting events or whatever you do, if you submit your values to others and set that example with effective communication, this trust will be had. And for the military, selfless service, honor, personal courage, integrity, that's all hugely important. For me, loyalty is very important. Trust and confidence comes from that. Okay, give me the next slide, please. Here's a band of brothers. Let me tell you a little bit about these guys. In 2006 and 2007, I went all over the battlefield with them. Some of them aren't even Americans. They get naturalized citizens. Every walk of life is in this picture. I'm the handsome guy in the middle without the hair. Still didn't have it 10 years ago. But what I want you to know is whether you're with a team like this, in my case on the battlefield in Iraq, or the teams that you work with, never forget that you can accomplish nothing without a team. You can accomplish nothing without a team. You've seen people in your area that don't submit to team. Everyone says there's no I in team. The people who think about I first, they may achieve something, but their longevity will never last. What I learned from these guys is teamwork first and to be with everybody. And look what Winston Churchill said. We love Winston, obviously. He didn't get reelected after the war, unfortunately. But we owe so much to people that we trust. In this case, he was talking during World War II about military members. I believe that in this community, as we look at people who contribute to the greater good, we owe them. And we should spend time thanking them for what they do and stepping up. Okay, give me the next slide. So here's what I tell, I'm going to slide through this. How'd that look? So here's what I tell veterans, and I submit to you that you can apply this to whether you're a veteran or whether you survived COVID or came through a very intense year, are these 5 things. We must always first honor those who have sacrificed more than us. In my case, when it comes to veterans, I always try to reach out to families of the fallen. This is an important time of year because in September, we honored 9/11. We saw the fall of Kabul, and it was Suicide Prevention Month. 22 veterans lose their life a day to suicide, higher than the national average. One of the lessons I have is we must always pay tribute to people who are in need. Be thankful for veterans or non-veterans. There's a lot to be thankful for in these trying times. Be proud. Everybody in this room has contributed something, so don't get overwhelmed by the negativeness. Be proud of what you've accomplished. Live a legacy. I believe that. I believe that everyone in this room, and Randy talked about, has been touched by somebody. Always try to live a legacy of somebody that you love and respected and can, like Randy said, pay it forward. And then the last thing is celebrate. Too often do we get caught up in the negativeness. I tell my veterans, don't forget to celebrate. You've heard this. You heard it on the news, especially with the fall of Kabul, the veterans that were in dire straits, and how, not that suicides went up, but there were, for me at Mount Carmel, it was more challenging to try to help people who felt hopeless. I reminded our veterans that you served, and I did it myself. For 20 years, you kept people who wanted to do our nation harm at bay with your service. Never forget that. Never forget that your service is worth it because you helped countless Afghans live a better life. I submit to you that I say that to veterans, but for you in this community, in this state, don't forget to celebrate. Hug the ones you love. Focus on the positive. Don't get caught up in the negative. I want to talk a little bit about living a legacy. Go next slide. If anyone know Bill Crawford? Anyone from Pueblo? Bill Crawford earned the Medal of Honor when he was 19 years old in northern Italy. As a 19-year-old kid, he fought the enemy, was brave beyond belief. For his actions, he received the Medal of Honor. However, a week after that action, one of his teammates was shot and dying. Crawford did not advance with his company. As a 19-year-old kid, he stayed behind with his friend that was dying. His friend died of his wounds. Crawford was taken prisoner by the Germans. He survived prison camp for 18 months. While he was in prison, his dad received his Medal of Honor posthumously for him at Fort Carson. The Germans found out that Crawford had won the Medal of Honor, and they awarded him like an extra piece of bread a day. Crawford survived what was equivalent to the Bataan Death March, marching prisoners as the Russians were advancing from east to west across Germany, and then was finally liberated. These lessons of Crawford are important. What I will tell you about Bill Crawford, if you don't know his story, he came out of the military, worked for the VA, decided he wanted to serve, did a full 20-year career in the Army, retired as a recruiter in Colorado Springs, and decided he wanted to do more. Medal of Honor recipient Master Sergeant Bill Crawford went to the Fort Carson to get a job, and they didn't have a job for him. He didn't tell them who he was. Crawford then went to the Air Force Academy to get a job, and they gave him a job. Anyone know what that job was? They gave him a job as a custodian. Crawford served as a custodian at the Air Force Academy for 3 years before the students realized who he was. I had an opportunity 5 years ago to speak at a memorial for him at Palmer Lake. It was intense because I wanted to make sure I got the story right. I went to visit his daughter, and she told me, nobody gets the story right, don't screw it up. So before I gave my remarks, she told me she was going to grade me. I got an A+, by the way. So what have I learned from Crawford? Medal of Honor recipient, was approached by President Reagan's wife in 1984. Nancy Reagan said, Medal of Honor recipient, Bill Crawford, my husband wants to present you the Medal of Honor at the commencement at the Air Force Academy. Crawford said, no, I already got it. Nancy said, no, your dad got it. Crawford capitulated and said, I will get it in a private ceremony. They tricked him. Here's the president giving Crawford his Medal of Honor during the 1984 commencement. One of the students was so touched by Crawford, he retired as a colonel, and he wrote these lessons of a janitor. So I submit to you, if you want to Google something that's impactful, look what Crawford did and what he believes, and I believe that it'll help all of us. Go to the next slide. So I'm a Red Sox fan. You know, they're playing tonight. Anyone fan of the Red Sox? So in 2004 was their first World Series. I want to pay tribute to Major United States Marine Corps John Ruocco. Rock and I grew up together, and this is right before the Battle of Fallujah. He's got his Red Sox Nation on, and I have my Red Sox hat on. Two young kids from the same hometown, proud to serve, Marine, soldier. He had been in theater for about 10 months. I had been there for about 2. And we remember reflecting on community and how good it was to be part of something bigger than us. What I didn't realize is how much he was struggling. He went home. I stayed in Iraq, and oddly enough, during the Super Bowl, when another New England team beat Philadelphia Eagles, I got word after the game through my wife that he completed suicide. He's 40 years old, took his own life. What I submit to you is my lesson from this is always look out for people that are struggling. Never judge a book by its cover. Make sure if you see somebody around that needs your help, especially now, that you do that. I'm driven to do that through my work at Mount Carmel. Next slide. Doc Eric Cottrell. Who said they're military? Who's a veteran? So Doc Cottrell was a sergeant in my battalion deploying to Iraq. And if you know anything even through the movies about non-commissioned officers and soldiers, they are not supposed to mix, right? Sergeants give the orders, the soldiers complete the orders, they're in charge. Doc was a little bit of an older soldier. He came back into the military after going into the reserves, and everybody knew how great he was. He was a medic, and he decided to go out drinking with the boys. So Doc got drunk with a couple of soldiers and got his butt kicked by a private. So he had a sergeant getting beat up by a private, and of course, what are you going to do there? He needs to go to prison. He needs to be kicked out of the military, sacrilege. So Doc came between me and my sergeant major, and I had a very good sergeant major, and we knew how important Doc was to our unit. People loved him. He was a very good medic, and we looked at him. He was a little nervous, and we asked him about what happened and obviously chastised him for getting beat up. I had a general letter of reprimand in a UCM, United Code of Military Conduct packet in front of me. I tore up the general letter of reprimand. My sergeant major tore up the non-judicial punishment, and we asked him if he was ready to save lives. We gave him a chance. We saw good in somebody and gave him a chance. So on the battlefield for 9 months, Doc probably saved 30 lives. One night during a battle in the town of Atha, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, which a medic should never be, and he took a gunshot wound to the leg. I remember going up to Doc in the darkness. Nobody saw his wound. He was tending to 2 civilians caught in the crossfire. He wouldn't leave the objective because he thought it was his duty to help them. He wouldn't help himself. I went to the first sergeant. It took us an hour or 2 to get everything stable, get him wrapped up, and get him off the objective. He wouldn't leave somebody in need. We gave him a chance, and he saved lives. Doc was killed by an IED a month later. My unit, my soldiers still remember him today, 13 years after, and they want to pay tribute to him with their actions. So living a legacy is tremendously important. So go to the next slide. Of course, I'm not going to, that's my information, and I have some packets if you're interested on the way out. But I'll leave you with this. Being part of a team is usually important. Never forget that whatever you do in your life and business, personal, teamwork is the most important thing. Bill Crawford teaches us humility. A Medal of Honor recipient that was a janitor and loved it and did his job well every day. Be humble. I learned from my friend who ended up dying that we need to look out for the goodness and the best in everybody. Never judge a book by its cover. Ask questions, be curious, make sure you're taking care of people. And from Doc, I think one of the lessons that we all should learn is when the chips are down and you're judging other people, give them a chance. Give people a chance to do better. So I'm honored to be here. Brian, I hope that met your need. Thank you for spending this time with me.